All right, welcome back. We're doing another part of 6.10 and just finishing off this last little bit. It says determine the values of two remaining trig ratios when given one of the trig ratios. Also find the measures of the acute angles of the triangles. So they basically want you to solve these right triangles, but they're giving it to you in a different context. Okay. So number one, they want you to find all of them given one of them. So if they gave you cosine, like in this first one, they now want you to find sine and tangent. And then they also want you to be able to find and solve that whole right triangle, all the angles, all the sides. So the first thing that I'm going to remind you of is you're going to be using all of your tools, your right triangle tools, just a quick reminder, are your Pythagorean theorem and your trig ratios. And then kind of like in the background is the triangle angle sum theorem. And then I'm just going to put 180 degrees to remind you. Okay. So these tools here are such a big deal. Like if you don't know them, then doing these problems becomes a really big task. All right, so let's get started. It says, so if they gave you cosine theta or alpha, in this case, cosine alpha equals to 3 over 5, the very first thing that you want to do is draw that triangle. Okay, and it doesn't really matter how your triangle looks right now. Later on, I will show you that it'll attach itself to the x and y axes. But right now, all we're doing is we're just gonna draw this triangle however we want. So I'm gonna use this color here, and I'm gonna label this angle alpha here and say that's a right angle. And they said the cosine is 3 over 5. So if you remember, cosine is defined as adjacent over hypotenuse. Sorry, and I'm kind of like running into my drawing right there, but that's okay. So that means that 3 is your adjacent side. This side right here is my 3. This is my adjacent. So that's 3. And my hypotenuse is 5, which you all know your hypotenuse is 5 from, I don't even know, probably 7th grade, 8th grade. Okay, so the first thing that they tell me to do is find the remaining trig values, but the first thing I want to do is solve that right triangle. I just want to solve it. I want to know all the pieces. So because they gave me two sides, I want to use the Pythagorean theorem to find my third side. For those of you who know your triples, you already know that this is a 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to put a 4 here. If you want, you can check me and you can do the Pythagorean theorem and go ahead and do that. But I already know it's a 3, 4, 5, so I'm just going to continue. Then what I want to do is I want to find the actual angle of alpha, because then I'm almost done solving my right triangle. So then because they gave me 3 and 5, and because they gave me cosine of alpha, I'm actually going to use this equation right here and solve it. So how do you get alpha out of cosine? And you guys are like, oh, Ms. Johnson, just take the cosine inverse. Exactly. So we take the cosine inverse here, and I just squeeze them in there because I don't have enough room. And you know that these two undo each other. Cosine inverse and cosine, they undo each other. So now all you're left with is alpha equals to cosine inverse of 3/5. Okay. And that's where my calculator comes in, and I do cosine inverse. I do 3 divided by 5. I get some number. I verify that I'm in degrees. Always, always check that you're in degrees. So now I know that alpha is about 53.1 degrees. Okay. So I'm going to write that in there. So this is 53.1 degrees. And then I'm going to subtract using Desmos. So 180 minus 53.1 minus 90 is 36.9 degrees. So this guy up here is 36.9 degrees. Okay, so that's me solving my right triangle. So I did this part, right? And now I just have to find the remaining trig ratios. Okay, so I'm going to keep calling him alpha because that's what they gave me is cosine alpha. So they want me to find sine of alpha and tangent of alpha based on my right triangle, right? So if you remember, sine is so, right? So that means I need the opposite. So the opposite of alpha is this guy here. So it's 4 over 5. And then the tangent of alpha is opposite. It's TOA, right? So sorry, let me write TOA. So it's opposite over adjacent. So that's just 4 over 3. And that's all they wanted you to do. So the thing that they wanted you to do here is that they wanted you to draw out the triangle based on the information they gave you. In this case, cosine of alpha equals 3/5. So the next one I'm going to do is this tan theta equals 8/3. Tan theta equals 8/3, right? So I'm going to have you start this one off. The very first thing I want you to do is draw your triangle. So you're going to draw your triangle here. You're like, Ms. Johnson, looks like the same triangle. I know. Generically, I tend to draw the same thing. And this is theta. Okay, how would you fill in 8/3? How would you fill in 8/3? Where does 8 go? Where does the 3 go? If you don't know, say, what's tan? And you should be saying, oh, tangent is TOA. Oh, so Ms. Johnson, this is opposite over adjacent. Very good. So this is opposite. So that's 8. And this is adjacent. So this is 3. Adjacent is the one that always touches the angle. Okay. And then, of course, I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem and go 8 squared plus 3 squared equals to c squared. 64 plus 9. 64 plus 9 is 73. And then if I take the square root of this, I think he's stuck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, he's stuck. So I'm going to leave him as 73. Square root is 73. And of course, I would use plus or minus, but throw out the minus, right? So there goes my what is this called? There goes my solved right triangle. All I'm missing is the angle, so that would complete my solving. So let me let's see, because they gave me tangent theta, I'm going to use that and figure out how to get rid of that tangent so I could do this. And so how do you undo tangent? And you go, oh, well, you just tan inverse both sides, Miss Johnson. Exactly. So then these two undo each other, and I'm left with theta equals to tan inverse of 8/3. Okay, and that is going to go on my calculator, and I go tan inverse of 8/3, and I got 69.4 degrees. So theta is 69.4 degrees, and if I go 90 minus 69.4. If you, in case you're wondering, if I go 180 minus 90 and then minus 69.4, I just saved myself a little bit of typing. So 20.6 degrees is my other angle. And that's it. And so now I just have to find my other ones. Since they gave me tangent, that means I need to find sine of theta and cosine of theta. Sine, you're thinking so. So that's 8 over square root of 73. Cosine is ka. And so that's 3 over square root of 73. Now, some of your teachers will not like the square root on the bottom. I'm fine with it because we have calculators, so this is fine. If your teacher does not like it, make sure you multiply by the square root of 73 over square root of 73. There's a video that I made called Rationalizing the Denominator. So look that up and learn how to do that. All right. Last but not least, this problem here is the same. So I want you to try this one on your own and then come back to me when you're finished. Now, if you need to come back, take a peek at what I did and then continue on your own, that is great. Okay, so now that you're back, I'm going to show you this triangle. Of course, I generically draw a right triangle and I put beta in this corner. And sine in this case, you're thinking, okay, well, where does the 4 and 7 go? And you're like, oh, this is so is opposite over hypotenuse. So I'm going to put opposite where it goes and the hypotenuse as 7. Okay, and then then you're thinking, okay, well, I need the third side. So of course you're going to be using the Pythagorean theorem. And so we're going to Pythagorean theorem this. So this is 4 squared plus 7 squared equals, oh, this is wrong. Why is this wrong? Tell me what mistake I made. Very good. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have put 7 squared there. He's the hypotenuse. He deserves to be by himself. So let me fix this. Yep, Miss Johnson makes mistakes too, right? All right, so this is 16 plus b squared equals to 49. So b squared equals to subtract there. That would be 33. And then I don't have there's no breaking down 33. So we say plus or minus, but we cross off the minus. So b is equal to the square root of 33. Some of you want to plug that into your calculator. Leave him alone. He's fine. Treat him the same. And so now all I have to do is find the acute angles. And so I'm going to use this equation. How do you get b out of sine? And you guys are like, just sine inverse him, Miss Johnson. Exactly. So I sine inverse here. I sine inverse here. And then you should see that these two would undo each other. So I'm left with beta equals to sine inverse of 4 over 7, right? And so that goes straight into my calculator. So sine inverse of 4 over 7 is 34.8 degrees. So that's about 34.8 degrees. So that guy gets 34.8 degrees. I should have kept this out. And I'll go 90 minus 34.8 degrees is 55.2. So there goes my answers. And the last but not least, I just have to write out my sine and they gave me sine, so I need to write out cosine of beta and tangent of beta, right? So cosine is ka, so that's adjacent, which is root 33 over 7, and tangent, which is toa, which is 4 over square root of 33. Okay, so for these problems here, your biggest thing here is drawing that right triangle. Once you draw your right triangle, then you can find all the sides and the missing angles, just like we did in the previous video, and then you're all set. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for listening. Have a great day.